Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning.
And I'm Trinity French.
And we are your business coaches at Wired to Change.
With the number 2.
We are here to help you grow your business to the level you want it to be so you can enjoy the life of a small business owner.
And don't I look tan today?
You look awesome.
Thank you.
I know you worked your butt off to get to the point to take 9 days off to go.
9 days vacation.
And I let the audience know that you were rednecking with friends in Michigan. And
Yes.
they're like, you know what? Who wouldn't be?
Ultimate rednecking.
Yeah.
The craziest thing that happened on my vacation, because there were a couple of crazy things
Always with you.
because of my redneck friends and
always
family.
with you, yes.
But the craziest thing that made me think I love the life of being a small business owner is that I did not open my laptop one time in 9 days.
That's a change for you.
It was huge. I decided to be present for my family because every time I see my nieces and nephews, because 6 months, 12 months will go by and they're, at all these different life stages. And I feel like I'm missing out on so much of their lives. So my entire goal was to do some things that felt fun to me. So I read an entire book that wasn't about coaching or business. I read a book for fun.
Good.
And didn't open my laptop. I mean, I did check my email on my phone.
Well, you have to, yeah.
But I didn't open my laptop, and I felt like that was a huge win for me.
And I like that you shouted out your team the other day for the work they did. So that's the way you do it. Yep.
I gifted Jamie a nice gift card to her favorite. She loves taking hot yoga. So I sent her a gift card via email to Lululemon, and she was ecstatically happy. So you got it. You have to take good care of your team.
Plain and simple. If you treat your employees right, your customers will do just fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It took months of podcasting, but I finally got another leader in the room with you, for you.
Another leader?
It took us forever because there was always one leader in the room. Now there's two. I will let you introduce our guest.
Okay.
Yes. Finally, another leader.
Finally, another leader.
Yes.
And the very, 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 very special guest, Sherri McManus with the Lou Everett Group. Sherri, we are super excited that you're here. Go ahead and tell everyone hello.
Hello.
Gosh, I adore you already. So one of the things that sets Sherri apart from a lot of other coaches is that they have a system and a process that they follow. And
I told Sherri when we were talking the other day, you two are going to hit it off because you are so system nerdy, and she's a disc person.
Yes.
I may as well leave.
I know. So I'm just looking over your resume over here and the little notes that Mike provided for me, and I'm just drooling. I have questions written down, and I am so excited to get to know you better today. And I know that our listeners are in for a treat because I've read some of John Maxwell's stuff. I've just kind of the little tip of the iceberg, know a little bit about his philosophy, but I cannot wait to dig into this with you and learn more about why you chose to go down that path and what it looked like.
It's a wonderful story, which we'll get to. But Drago, I think here in a minute, you can probably turn my microphone off. It'll be useless. So.
I'm like, see ya, call it a day. I'm done.
And I was so excited to come in and see Drago today because throughout the quarantine, there's only a couple of people that I've seen, right? I've seen you, my work husband. Mm-hmm. I've seen our podcast guests. We've been doing really good at limiting our exposure. And I've seen Drago, and it was like coming home to family here at Purple Comma. So
he's
kudos
like
to Drago.
Is he your younger brother? Can I ask that way? It's close. Twins separated at birth. Let's go with that.
Maybe.
Let's go with that, yeah.
I probably am a few years older than him.
It's close.
Yeah.
We'll
I don't know.
That, so.
We'll find out.
I always like
a real lady never shares her age.
No, and I wasn't about to ask. So A, it doesn't matter, and B, I'm right either way. No matter what I say, I could play it up. So I always like to meet husband-wife couples, husband-wife business owners. Excuse me. Two questions only. What do you talk about at the end of the day, and who breaks the tie?
That is a good question.
That's all I want to know. Everything else could care less about.
We do talk about business, so there's times for Lou is my husband. We are the Lou Everett Group, and he's the one. It's like, okay, we have to stop.
Oh, it's him.
Yep.
He's the one putting in the brakes.
He does.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He will, because I will keep going. I'm just such a workaholic that I'm like, go, go, go.
Are you one of those, let me just check one more. I know it's 7:45. Let me check one more email. Okay.
Yep. He'll come downstairs and I'm still working. And he's like, what are you doing? And it's probably 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And he's like, you started at 9. I'm like, uh-huh. So, yeah.
But that's how you know that you love what you do, when you decide to do it, even when you don't have to.
Right.
And I think that is a hallmark of a great business owner. You do have to know how to shut it off at times, but it's okay to love what you do and be a workaholic.
Yeah.
So my biggest question for you is, why John Maxwell?
Yes. Well, see, for John Maxwell, there's a lot of folks that don't know John Maxwell, which shocks me sometimes.
We talked about this yesterday. I was surprised.
Give us a little
What?
history and why
Yeah, let me tell you. Well, for John Maxwell, for those folks that don't know John Maxwell, he is the #1 guru in leadership. He's known for his leadership. He's known for his books, and he's got tons and tons of books. Actually, I think 31 million copies of books in 50 languages.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's amazing.
Stop.
What?
So
We got a story.
Mike's trying to take pictures. I'm over here peacocking.
Trying to do better than I did a month ago, but we'll get to that story. Go ahead, Sherri. I really hate to ruin your serious moment.
It's all right. And John Maxwell, actually, he started out as a pastor, and now he still does pastoring, I guess you could say, but he is a pastor. But he started the John Maxwell team. Let me think. From 2011 is when the actual International John Maxwell team actually started.
Okay.
My husband and I, we're a part of that for about almost 2 years now. And twice a year, they have a huge conference, an international conference. I mean, long story short, last August we went, and there was 3,200 trainers, coaches, and speakers all throughout the world.
Where was the meeting?
Amazing. It was in Florida.
Where was the meeting before that?
Florida. They're always in Florida. There's one in March, and there's
bummer.
one in August, and there's one
Like maybe
in
Milan or something like that. Sydney, Australia, right?
Florida's not bad.
Yeah.
Just depends what part of Florida.
She could go to Florida on her own.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing experience, and that's where everybody gets like certified. But you go through their training, and it's an investment. But the special thing about John Maxwell is that, yes, he's the leadership guru, and you can pick up any book of his and really dive in from personal development, a leadership perspective. And the thing is, I'm very proud to say he's one of our mentors and coach, because he is down to earth and he lives it. And that's the beauty about that. There's other wonderful other speakers out there. You got Tony Robbins and some other terrific ones. But there's something with John Maxwell, he really lives and breathes it. And there's something with the John Maxwell team is that there's a DNA. And it really is about people first. And that's the beauty about it.
Had you looked at other programs before you decided to go that way?
My husband did. My husband did a little bit. He's always known about John Maxwell. But what really stemmed me, which gets into my story about my why, is that I was always into leadership. So I like Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar, and I
you
love
see
all
the drool coming down.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Just want you to
I'm
know.
like, oh my gosh. I can't wait to find out all the books that you've read.
Another sister for me.
Well, I tell you what, every time I meet someone that also has a passion for learning, I always walk away with something new that I didn't already know. And it's super exciting. I'm like sitting here like, what am I going to learn today?
That's I got a couple nuggets for everyone today. So that's good. But no, so that's a little bit of backstory about John Maxwell and a little bit about him. And he's still kicking and is wonderful. So what stemmed from me having this inspiration is I've always been a leader ever since I was really young. My mom told me when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, we have our neighborhood friends, and here I was, the littlest one, like leading the pack.
Would you call that bossy, maybe?
I probably was.
You know
I'll
what?
be honest, but
all of us girls, women that were called bossy, you know what? I tell everyone to shut the F up because I get paid a lot of money to be bossy now.
You're badass bitches now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I think now they don't really tell children that they're bossy anymore. It has a negative connotation. But my niece Aria has so much in common with me that it's almost scary. And she walked around the entire week of my wedding, and she was like, guess what? I'm the leader. I'm the leader. I'm the leader. So I think that it's inherent that we embrace that part of ourselves, because leadership, I think it does come out a little bossy when you're younger, because you're figuring out how to harness it.
Right.
And that's why I think John Maxwell does a great job of helping leaders and people in positions of authority to really work within their teams in a way that they're not perceived as bossy.
Right. And it's not positional. And that's the beauty about leadership. And leadership is not positional. It is influence. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yep.
And that goes to my story a little bit, is that in August of 2018.
Before you get to that, okay, which is a great story, let's go back to growing up. Did you just always have the best idea? And you thought, you know what, we'll have more fun doing this?
Yeah,
knowing you for a little bit, I'm sure it came from a place of good.
Yeah.
You thought, well, this will be more fun.
It did, and also on the disc scale, I'm a DI, so there's that competitiveness, and listen to me, and my way is best, as you're young.
Yes.
So there's that relationship, but yeah, I always was that leader, always was that influence with others. Wow.
All right, so tell I love this story on how she got to where she is.
So my next question for you before we tangent off anymore, because we do seem to have a lot of similarities in how we were as children. And I know for me, there was a pivotal moment when I realized that there was power in not being the boss or being bossy, but in harnessing my leadership abilities. Do you think that you had a pivotal moment, and what was it?
That's a good question. It took me a while. Early on in my career, it took me a while. I was bossy. I didn't mean to. It didn't. It just came off that way. And I'm a Taurus, so I just chalked it up to like, well, I'm a Taurus, and that's how I am. But later in my career, and also with the story I'm going to share with you, I think it was later in life. But once you hear my story, that was the pivotal moment. I really do, to realize going, oh, because we fell into the trap, which is really no fault of anyone's, but now I'm kind of glad that things have happened the way they have in society, is that, there's such a new playing field. Whereas before, we were living off this crazy playbook from 1950-something in business of, we need to have the fancy cars, we need to have the big house and the boat and whatever else, all those possessions, to feel like that we made it. And we have to have this fancy title to realize that we made it. And I really fell into that trap, because you see people ahead of you and you're like, wow, look at those guys. They can do anything. They can go golf at 3:00 in the afternoon, It must be nice. And here I am working. And then until I realized, like, it's not about that. And you can, but it's people first. And that's where the satisfaction is. And I grew up in a religious home, growing up Catholic. So we were thinking about
another thing we have in common.
There we go.
Except I'm a recovering Catholic.
Recovering Catholic, okay.
Yes.
And so I was faith-based. So thankfully I had that foundation. And it just really helped me have that foundation. And it's funny, because when I had when I was younger, I had this story that I fed the neighborhood. There's something about food. That's why I love food pantries. I'm always a big giver on that. And here my poor mom went shopping for all of us, spent $18 on food, and here I was bringing out in the garage. I'm like, everybody come over. Having crackers and cheese and peanut butter sandwiches, and it kind of ties into, not to get religious, but to Jesus feeding people. Oh, yeah. And it just seems to tie into that. And I didn't realize the connection until years later.
Right.
And I was like, wow. So it's just one of those things that just, God has definitely gave me a second chance to use my smarts for not evil, but use it for even better than I ever thought imaginable.
So the moment, what was it?
Yeah. So now can I tell my story?
Yes.
Okay. If it has to be about you, Sherri, go ahead, right?
So in August of 2018, I found myself in the hospital in the ICU and the burn center over here in UNC. and we weren't sure if I was going to live or die at that time. It started out as a simple cold. Didn't know what it was. Thought it was pneumonia. Oh, no, thought it was a flu. That was certainly not it. Then it turned into pneumonia. So it was this crazy virus. But what happened was that it was so bad that I was burning from the inside out. What was happening was that I had got a rare disease called MERM, which is a derivative of Steven Johnson syndrome. And trust me, we didn't know what the heck that was either. We're like, crash course, what is this? And come to find out, anybody can get it. Steven Johnson's, just the backstory is that anybody can get it. You can take an over-the-counter drug, and then your body will revolt. It will just go against you. With my situation, mine was actually from a virus it was just pneumonia of wearing my body down so low that all my good mucous membranes were revolting. It was going against me. So I was literally burning from the inside out. And my eyes were completely bloodshot. I looked like The Walking Dead. My blisters were all over my face. Eyes were completely red. I couldn't quite swallow anything anymore because come to find I had blisters in my throat. Mm-hmm. And my husband looked and he's like, okay, this is not just pneumonia, or this is not just a cold. Like, this is too much. So finally took me to the ER, and they were, thankfully the good doctors there diagnosed what they did. And so the reason I tell that story is because prior to this, I was in a work environment that was very high sales, that was very pressure oriented. And sales I've always been into, so that's nothing. But the fact that it was leadership at that time was so focused on the bottom line instead of valuing their employees. They forgot about that. It never started that way. They did value, but then it started to erode because money was
took over.
Yeah, took over. Right. And people in my department were getting sick all the time, like constantly. Mm-hmm. Couldn't figure out why. It was a crash and burn type of situation, to the point where it was like unexpected expectations of 70 plus hours a week, and even down to verbal abuse, which nobody needs to to tolerate that. Am I a hard worker? Of course. I'll take responsibility of working as hard as I did because I'm such an A player. But nobody needs to tolerate the expectations of that, and also verbal abuse of not being good enough, even though you're the rock star. Mm-hmm. Just not appropriate. So, and I knew right then and there that I didn't want to do that to my team. I'm like, there's no way. And I was a manager. I'm like, I'm not doing that to my team. I'm not going to be the jerk manager to do that. And I stood up, and my team appreciated it. So after being at the hospital in 10 days, it could have been a lot longer. It could have been 30 days. It could have been blind, and I could have been dead. And that's the extreme cases. So I got survived with very minimal damage. I do have some damage from it, but the alternative,
Right.
So I had a newfound purpose once I got out of the hospital in 10 days, and I found out that, I really dove into personal development a little bit deeper at that point. So I guess you can say that would be my huge eye-opener. So I knew about it. I always needed to do it to dive a little bit deeper, and then that made me to really deep in that experience. So I knew that leadership at that time is not positional. It shouldn't be positional. Mm-hmm. And I fell into that trap, just like thousands of others have. We've all had that. And it's influence, nothing more, nothing less. So, yeah, so that's really stunned.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that you're still here.
Yeah, thanks.
And
yeah, me too.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that disease, but wow, that is definitely something that is a miracle that you are still here and still kicking. And thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, you're welcome.
How often, because you and Lou do a number of presentations, you're live a lot of places in person, you guys go all over. How often do you tell that story?
Not enough, actually. I'll be honest.
Good.
Yeah,
you should.
I don't share that often enough, but it's every time the summertime usually makes me want to say it because it's what happened, and it'll be up to 2 years in August. So it's just that time because I know my story will impact another person, and they can relate. They're like, oh my gosh, I do have a jerk as a boss, or I do have an environment that's a crash and burn. And it's getting more and more evident with businesses out there that people are leaving not jobs because they're leaving their bosses.
Mm-hmm. Does that so we're coming up on 2 years. Does that feel like 2 months ago or like 10 years ago?
It still feels like 2 years ago, or a year.
Right.
It's still fresh. I just went to my ophthalmologist not too long ago, and my eye doctor, and I had to explain the situation because you get new crops of people that come in. I'm like, oh wow, like you weren't here a year ago, and I had to explain, and I got a little choked up, and I told my husband that, and I was like, I don't know why, but I guess because it's a traumatic experience.
And it's so fresh.
Yeah.
You haven't, it's like losing a loved one or like you still have that time that you need to, like your body may have healed, but you need to heal emotionally and mentally from that.
A little bit. I mean, I feel I have, but I think the passion behind it just stems because I don't want to be numb to it. I want to use that energy, use that. And if I get upset about it, then that's okay, and allow myself to share it even more. And I think that just gets me to drive to share more of that story.
I think some people don't know there's not necessarily because you weren't really walking towards something, but you knew you had to walk away from something.
Right.
And I think a lot of people at different stages of their life are afraid of that, and rightly so, because there's nothing to walk to. What do you say to them even when there's nothing to walk to, but they're in that moment?
You just got to trust, you trust in faith. You just have to. There's, a question that come up to me, and previous questions have been like, what do you tell people if they're in that situation? I'm like, get out, get out. I'm telling you, I'm like, your health is more make your health a priority to get out of that. And I went back. See, that's the funny thing. I just wasn't like, out of the hospital and I'm like, I'm going to resign. No, I went back to the fire because I worked hard. And I felt I'm not going to let this stop me. And I was like, I'll take it easy. I have a team. I'm going to treat them the way that I feel that this is going to be, not a crash and burn situation. And management was like, okay, we'll hear you out. We'll let you do what you want to do. I'm like, great. You know how long they let me do that?
Hang on a sec. 2.5 weeks.
Not even.
Oh, no.
Less than a week.
Oh.
Sure. You can mold your team how you want. Okay, great. Less than a week.
Oof.
And I saw small increments. I did see progress. And I always reported to my manager. And I was like, look, and she was okay with it. She's like, that's great. But the leadership above her was, it's that pressure. It's like, do what you got to do. So it was back to, the whipping, and crash and burn again. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. So needless to say, a few months after that, and I protected my team as much as I could. And I was transparent with them, which again, didn't fall too kindly with management. But I was just like, I'm not going to lie to them. I'm like, and it's just being transparent, being real. And they appreciated it. And then when I left, I was just like, okay, I had enough because I don't want to get myself sick again. And they saw that and they're like, this sucks. I'm sad that you left. And I was like, yeah, because I protected them to a degree as much as I could.
And we talked on a couple of previous podcasts about management styles. Yeah. And a lot of people feel like, well, my boss right now is an asshole, so I guess that's how you manage.
That's how you manage, yeah.
And thankfully, I've had some really good bosses, so I haven't had to deal with that. Everybody's got one.
Right. Yeah.
But
my dick boss that I left that job.
So good.
God, I had no plan, just crying in a roast beef sandwich. And all I knew is that this is just poisonous and I needed to get out.
Who was here when you're telling that story? What
I can't remember.
Clint?
Maybe it was
Because I think we were in here when you were telling that story, I think. No, or was it Scott and Dirk? Anyways, I can't remember. But we had to decide which was worse, crying or in a roast beef restaurant.
Well, yeah, because at the time I was a vegetarian.
Yeah,
and
that was it.
Yes, I broke down. I ordered a roast beef sandwich, and I just sat at Arby's and cried.
Oh, no.
That was it.
Yes.
A vegetarian at Arby's. And they scolded her for going to Arby's. So I think it was Scott and Dirk.
Oh, yeah. They were like, why Arby's? I'm like, that was the only place that was around.
Too funny.
It's not the point of my story.
Exactly.
The point of my story is that guy was a complete jerk.
Yeah.
He was
Exactly.
such a jerk.
Yeah.
And I had no backup plan. I had no, and sometimes I tell people that you just have to leap and have faith that it's going to work out. Mm-hmm. And I just hit the ground running and wound up finding becoming a coach and coaching all of these real estate agents, and finally found like, oh my gosh, this dream job that I didn't know existed, I was able to create. And that's what led me to becoming a real estate agent. And that's what led me to having my real estate team. And that's what then led me to coming back. It all came back around to coaching again. And that's where I love to sit. So if I hadn't taken that leap of faith and left that terrible, terrible boss, and I hope that I left him with something to think about, because I told him why I left.
Mm-hmm, me too.
Good, and you should.
Yeah.
I did. Oh, I got HR involved. Trust me.
You should.
Oh yeah, I had to be, because it was he said, she said. Kind of,
yeah,
and I was just like,
that,
no.
Yeah.
And then it was like a gang up, and I'm like, no. I'm like, we're doing this. I'll tell you the real reason I'm leaving, and HR's involved. And it was literally probably a 2 or 3 hour conversation.
And that changed the dynamics of that conversation with HR in the room, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
And I warned HR what was going to happen because of it.
Yeah.
Because of the certain answers that were going to come out. I go, I'm calling it now. This is what's going to happen. This is what the person's going to say. And exactly. And I'm like, and I'm like, yes, because I knew it. I just knew. And the person looked at me, and I'm like, I told you.
Can't change your spots. Yeah.
And I was just like, and so she picked up on it, and she was like, okay. I was like, I was telling the truth. And I was like, yeah. So I told my reasons, and I was like, and it was funny because I think I saw one too many episodes of Shark Tank. So I said, and for these reasons, I'm out. I felt so powerful at that time, and I'm like, man,
well, you had leverage at that point the first time,
I
right?
did.
In
I
that
had
company.
leverage, and I was like, and for these reasons, I literally had 2 pages of concrete. Like I kept my emotions. I don't know how I did it. It was the grace of God. I'll be honest. It was just, I was very factual. I didn't have any emotions. I was just very like, I'm just I'm like, I kept all the emotions to the side. I don't know how I did it. I just did it, and it just overcame me. Felt powerful and empowered, really, to say, these are the facts. This is what I went through. This is not acceptable, and this has got to change. And there was a changement for a little while because of that. So I made a small dent for a short amount of time. So at least my efforts were not in vain.
But you don't know the ripple effect of the people on your team that sat quietly and just observed and thought, I'm going to put that in my back pocket for when I need to do that. So you just never know. Right. For the both of you, looking back, you knew that was a bad place to be, right? Bad place, bad person.
Not at first, though. See,
but at some point in time, though.
Not at first.
Not at first.
Oh, no, agreed.
Yeah, it's slowly eroded, and it was the norm.
Yeah.
That's the crappy thing. You get so used to being told that you're this, and being told, and being slammed, being hit, and being hit.
And I didn't even let it get to that. I was with that company for a little over 2 weeks. No, it was longer than that. It was probably right around going into my 4th or 5th week, because the first couple weeks were just training, course, and they're pumping you full of all the
best thing,
sparkles and glory, and this place is amazing.
It's Disney World.
Yeah. And I should have known. And one of the things that I learned from that I applied to being a recruiter was to make sure that new recruits coming in talked to other team members and had a really straightforward conversation with them. Because if I had spoken with the other team members before accepting that position, I would have because as soon as I met them, I saw how downtrodden they were, that they were just beaten up. And I was like, I do not want to be like them. I do not want to be here for 4 years. Right. Doing the same thing and dealing with the same shit. Right. And I just couldn't even imagine. So I had to bail.
Nice. Well, you
and
found
bail
out
fast.
you found out early. That's really good. It took me 1.5 years, almost 2 years, to get to that point. And it's
well,
amazing.
at the time, I had a very supportive boyfriend who also didn't have a job. So when I quit my job, I think it made him feel a little bit better about himself.
Was this one of your famed exes?
This was my famed ex, the only one I ever had that I regret, because he was a complete jerk. I was going to call him something much worse than that, but
so Trinity has a knack for retaining relationships. As she says all the time, she collects people in a good way. Yeah. And I believe that. Having been around her now, I believe that. She has sold houses to a couple of her exes. She wants to start her own reality TV show, X Island.
Yeah.
So all her exes, and she pairs them up with these hot women or guys or whoever they want to be paired up with. Yeah. But that's how she stays in touch with people. That's her relationship. Wow. That's her Thor's hammer of relationship. That's what I do. So yeah, it's amazing.
Hey, when you find good people, you don't let them go just because they're not your person. Right. Does not mean that they don't deserve a place in your life anymore.
And one was at your wedding.
Yeah, I think there were a couple at the wedding.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
There's so many redneck stories from Michigan. Sherri, sure. So I want to get into a couple things here. Changing subjects for a minute. East Stroudsburg and Dutchess Community College.
Yeah.
I love that you're on the tennis team. We'll talk more about that, maybe probably off the air, because I grew up playing tennis as well, and I love that sport. Yeah. But I want pictures. You were on the dance team.
I was, yeah. I was a semi-professional.
Are there pictures, video?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure there's.
Are those shared for the public, or is that just for you and Lou?
No, not like that.
I may call you out on that one day. Yeah. What number did you play in tennis?
I was, second doubles and first and second singles.
Nice. All right.
And that was MVP. Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Yeah, for 1 year, one season, whatever.
That was your safe zone, the tennis court, right? No matter what else was going on?
Well, the tennis and my dancing were my lifesavers, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I've been dancing and teaching for over 20 years. I started when I was 3 or 4, and I'm kind of thankful that my parents were, pushed me in that direction, and just kind of, those are my saving graces whenever, especially in college, when I transferred from New York to Pennsylvania. I had nothing. It's not like I had family out there, so I was really on my own. It was a huge transition, and dancing and tennis were my only lifesavers because it kept me.
Did you have a victory dance after your tennis matches right on the court? Taunt the opponent?
I was bad. I did this is so sad, but back in the day with Andre Agassi, and you know how all them, they were like cursing. I mean, there was hardly any women like that. Thank God for like Serena and all those lovely ladies that are like, woo. But it didn't have a lot of them back then. So we had to look up for the guys, and it was men's sport. And, McEnroe, I mean, all of them. Yeah. So I was the one yelling fudge sickles, seriously, because I would get people were like, stop cursing. Yeah. So I was like, fudge cookies, So, and like my partner was just like, what? I'm like, well, I can't curse. I don't know what to say, Oh, man, I had such a temper, and there's times where I threw my racket. So.
Were you a good doubles partner with all these profiles that you have in disc and Bossy is 6 years old?
I was. I learned to make sure that hey, get your ball. It's on your side. Get it. So I was more the director as far as like, okay, yours. All right, that's mine.
God, that's annoying as hell. I know it's mine because you're at the net and I'm back here. You couldn't get to it. I get it's mine, right? It's like the second baseman yelling at the center fielder who's on the warning track. Yours.
Yep.
I got it.
I got it.
Yeah. That's so funny. The other fun I've had with you in the time we've got to know each other is the first time you and I were going to do a 1-to-1, I couldn't find you anywhere because I'm typing in Sherri Everett or McManus. I can't remember which one I started with. I'm like, there's nothing on this woman. What's going on? And then I learned you lead a double life.
I know.
You go by McManus because you're McManus on LinkedIn and Everett on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to figure that out. I'm like, who's this Sherri McManus woman?
You haven't changed your name, right?
No. See, we're technically Everett McManus. Yeah. We're technically Everett McManus.
Okay.
With that. And because then when my husband and I, we've been together for 15 years, married 14 years. And at the time I was thinking like, well, it's just my sister and I. We don't have any legacy from my dad for the McManus. And my sister's a doctor. She doesn't have any kids. It's her and her husband. She stayed in the professional lane, kept her maiden name. And then in public, she would use her married name with that. So I kind of, weirdly enough, I kind of fell in that trap too a little bit. And it was just like, well, I'd rather have the Everett McManus, really. And my husband, he's been married before. He has 2 children, and they already carry on his name. Mm-hmm. So it was just kind of like, honey, you could do whatever you want. I don't care. I have my children, and we're good. And I've been with them since they were 6 and 8, and now they're 23 and 20.
Ooh, so how good of a stepmom are you?
I think I was okay,
I love the term bonus mom.
Yes.
Yeah, bonus mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the good movies are made about the stepmom.
know, and they're
Never
always,
is a
like,
good bad
nasty.
movie made about a bonus mom. That's Carol Brady, the bonus
Yeah,
mom,
yeah,
right?
bonus
Like,
mom.
no.
That's
We
true.
want to hear this. Oh, that's funny. But going back to your leadership, though, hotel work, network solutions. I like how you wrote down you were an award-winning sales and solutions expert.
Yeah, that was an awesome place. And talk about PeopleCentric. That was an awesome place.
Do you know when you're around a group are you around a group of people from one company long enough to start picking up on stuff?
Yeah, I was with the state. I was a state employee for 7 years.
You know, I asked that question wrong. As a trainer,
as a
now
trainer.
with you and Lou, when you go into these groups and you talk to them about leadership and everything, do you have time to pick up on? Oh, I get it now.
As far as a personality,
Just if you sense that, okay, now I know why we're here because there's zero leadership going on, and
yes,
he's a pain in the ass. That's why the employees don't talk to him. So it doesn't take you long.
no, it doesn't take you long. No,
Nice.
no, we can sniff it out.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a good book waiting to be written.
I know, right?
No names. What's the commonality of the groups you go in to help?
Really, they have to be people-centric. If they're not people-centric, then they're not going to be open to the ideas of communicating to their team to make it even better than what they have. That's the thing. So as long as they're people-centric, be like, okay, we know we have issues. We know we have some problems going on. I want my team to be more productive. How do I get that happen? Why is Bobby and Sue not talking? Why are they not communicating correctly? Well, have you done assessment on yourself?
Yep.
Are you growing as a leader?
Yeah.
And that's the questions. It's not us telling them what to do. It's asking the right questions because the answers are in all of us.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of the bosses are like, no, I'm the same with everybody.
Yeah.
I think you just answered my question.
Yeah. I'm like, well, that's not good. Because everybody has their language, and people you have to be aware of it, and people aren't. People are like, well, I am who I am. I'm like, no. I'm like, you can change. It's okay.
And we talked about this when Sarah Madras was here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, same
she's
type of
big
thing.
into
And I've known this, having managed for a while, that we all, and it took me a while to learn that because there was those like, here, Mike, you're managing 100 people now. I'm like,
right.
One more time?
Yeah.
We were not taught that everybody has a currency. Right. I had a couple of people that wanted the promotion. For the money, I had a couple of people just wanted the title. I'm director now. Everybody see me?
Yeah.
And then others just want a pat on the back or in a meeting, Sherri, great job. Everyone. Sherri worked all weekend long while we were all home playing. She stayed here working. And it takes a while to figure that out.
It does.
And with your team and even just the realtors you work with, not really work with, but just involved at Hunter Row, it's the same thing, just learning everybody.
Oh.
And how to how to connect.
I can tell from a quick phone call whether or not I'm going to want to work with somebody.
I can see that.
It happened today. Like, I can tell by, how they answer their phone, and are they well-spoken, and are they, asking me there's little things that you can pick up on, and I'm like, okay, this person's going to be a good person that's going to work in a win-win situation versus a win-lose situation. Because in real estate and in coaching, everything's win-win.
Yes.
And if you have a player that's trying to play for win-lose, that's when things get all screwbally.
Is that a technical term?
Yep. It's in the dictionary.
You should trademark that because I believe that. So believe that. A lot of times, though, what you and Lou see are communication issues.
Yeah, communication, definitely. That's usually the number one with that. But it's also the leaders have to grow. Yes. You don't know what you don't know, and that's where we can help to find out that, to listen. The more that you grow, the more that your team is going to grow into that, and that's why we have continuity plans, because it's not just like a one and done situation. And that's what some people fall short in some of these organizations that are like, oh, we want motivation and we want our team and yay, and get all this training, right? It's like, it's not one and done. You have to keep nourishing that. You got to keep growing that. And I don't know too many companies offhand that have a continuity plan, that are sticking with a group or such as us, and be like, I'm going to be with the Lou Everett Group for a year, and every quarter we're going to meet with the team, meet with the C-suite, meet with the middle management, and have masterminds, have trainings, have workshops, something that's going to have everybody learning and growing.
Because you want to ask them, and most people don't want the truth.
Yeah.
They tell you they do.
Yeah,
Can't handle it. It's like, oh, so you learned to drive a car in one day. Well, no.
You're right, exactly.
Go with me on this. It's like, come
Exactly.
on, people.
Well,
But
see,
even in business, and Trinity knows this, it's the follow-up. Same thing with her as it is with you. It's the follow-up. Yeah.
Well, people have this. There's some gaps. There's 8 misconceptions of gaps on growth, right? And I just did a presentation this week for the a women's group. So it's funny that you bring this up, but people have this assumption gap, and I did too. I fell into this trap of we just assume that we're going to grow. We're just going to assume that we're just going to be a leader or a manager in our roles. And when we have children or when you see kids grow up, they grow, right? They go stronger. They grow taller. They're just kind of carefree, and they go through life and there's no challenges. They just kind of go right through. So we assume that that's going to continue on in our spiritual and mental state too. And that's not true. We actually have to grow on purpose.
Now, I think for the first time, we've got a cliffhanger.
Dun, dun, dun,
Because there's
dun.
7 more
There are.
that we can get to on
7
the next
more.
podcast. So hold that. We're going to talk more about that because you're right. We just assume, and but again, going back to Trinity all the time, it's like one of the questions we ask on our intake is, do you like to learn? We literally ask people, do you like to learn?
Right.
And
Because
you
if
find
they
out,
don't,
right.
they are probably not going to be a good client fit for us, because we do push our clients to continuously learn.
Right. Yeah, you have to.
And and it can be really uncomfortable, but they have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And we do that, but we for a purpose, though. So.
Well, that's where the whole comfort zone comes in. So,
Which, everybody wants to be in, but they're like, oh, no. Yeah. Anyways, where's the best place for people to find you?
Oh, just LouEverettGroup.com.
All right.
There, and Sherri at the LouEverettGroup.com.
No McManus anywhere, people. It's
And
Everett
it's
all
Sherri
the way.
with an I,
Yes.
not a
that
Y.
is true.
Yes,
Yes,
which helps. I know you've had your
SHERRI.
name spelled wrong 1,000 times. So I just keep going back to Itty, but that's another story.
Itty.
So where can they find us real quick before we get out of here?
You can find us here at the Purple Comma Studio every
Yes.
Thursday. And if you want to be a guest on our podcast, hit us up. We always are looking for fun, interesting, and people that we can learn from. If you want to follow us on the interwebs, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter. I almost said MySpace, but that doesn't exist anymore. But we're also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, and of course, you can always email us, info@wiredtochange.com with the number 2. And we do respond to all emails and text messages.
Yes, and if you want to be a guest on our show, email us first. Don't show up. We're not hip on that. So, plus we have security. You couldn't get in the front door anyways. Thank you, Sherri. We enjoyed it very much, and we look forward to talking a little bit more on the next show. And we'll see everybody next time on our Wired to Change podcast.